Morning, everyone. Okay, just getting everything adjusted and getting ready to paint. And I'm feeling a little bit better this morning. Yesterday, for some reason, I guess maybe because I haven't live streamed in a couple of months, I was feeling a little nervous, and it's just a crazy day yesterday. So yeah, feeling good this morning. So good morning, everybody. Got my cup of coffee and I've got the links up. And I actually put it on Facebook too, like I did yesterday. So if you know of anybody that's having problems, just tell them to go look at the top of my feed and they will see that. And of course the link is on. I just better double check. I'm pretty sure I saved it. And obviously, some of you are already here, so you found it. Okay, so what I did early this morning is I pulled off all the masking fluid. Boy, when I did that little masking video, I was using that new bottle of that Daniel Smith that's got the little tip on it, and I did not like that at all. I started out liking it, but the little tip kept falling off. Honestly, I still think the best masking fluid that I have tried has been the Winsor and Newton, and let me check here. What's the? I always forget the name of the other one. It's I think it's from a company called Graphics. Anyhow, it's more of a white masking fluid, and it works really good. But I usually just stick with Winsor & Newton. It's got a little bit of a yellow tone, and it pulls off the paper really easily. For some reason, this Daniel Smith that I used, it didn't come off very easily. And I had a lot of trouble making my lines really nice. So, yeah, you're going to see me have to fix some of that. So, but all in all, I think it's going to look really good once I start just really tightening up everything on the cactus. I mean, I think the cactus looks really good as it is. And obviously, everybody's going to have their own style. And everybody's going to decide when they think too much is too much. But, oh my gosh, I definitely am going to have to fix those, the needles. And so I might actually go over, a little bit today. Yesterday I had to stop at 10. I had some running around in town to do. So this morning I'm going to I want to get the cactus done and get onto that flower because I really think that that's the important focus. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask this morning. If there was anything you were having trouble with, let me know and we can talk about that. I know some of you are waiting and watching and then you're going to paint later. And, for me, that's the way I like to paint. I like to watch it and then I like to watch it again and then paint. It just really helps things sink in. I have heard that it's really good that you hear things 3 times. You have to hear things 3 times before it really sinks in, and I definitely noticed that. And let's see. Just a warning, I'm just reading a comment. Winsor & Newton also has a permanent masking fluid that doesn't come off. Yeah, be careful when you buy one. Yeah, you're right. Thanks for pointing that out. I don't get that. You'd think it'd have a big warning on it. Maybe the only difference would be that the one that's permanent might not have the color in it, that yellow. So definitely even check that bottom. There should be a little bit of yellow that you see in the bottom, but I have not noticed it has ever affected my painting. In fact, I know they say only leave it on like 2 or 3 days. If I've set a painting aside, I rarely do that, but if I have set a painting aside, and forgot that I had masked in some certain areas, especially if you go over with a lot of background color. I've left it on for, I don't know, 6 months, a year, and it's come off just fine. I am in no way saying to do that. I would not recommend that, but I have noticed that I've left masking fluid on a lot longer than a couple of days. So, yeah, just Zupeja. Oh gosh, that's one thing about the handles on the YouTube is that you can't tell. Sometimes you can't tell what people's names are. So anyhow, she gave that warning about having that permanent masking fluid. So be careful. Another thing, and watch if you are struggling with masking. Watch my little tutorial. It's free. I just go over masking tips. And so I'm going, when I flip down and you see it, now that I have taken off my masking fluid, you're going to see how, boy, did I not focus on really getting that on. What I should have done was use a very, very fine old brush. Like this one is a number 5, and it's very, very, very tiny, a 5/0, I'm sorry. And I should have spent a couple of hours just really watching those lines. I accidentally masked out some shadows. You know, it's good. It's actually good to see me make mistakes, because then you're going to see how I'm going to correct them. And so I'm trying to save you some time from not doing this. So you're going to really notice when I turn the camera face down when we get ready to paint. Yeah, I just looked at it. I tried to correct some of it this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, not very happy with it, but that's okay. You know, that's how you learn, is by making mistakes. And masking fluid is one of those things that you just really have to be careful. You have to go slow. You have to stay to the inside of whatever it is that you're masking. If you're on rough paper, you have to go even slower, because if you try to drag that brush or whatever instrument you're using to get that masking fluid on the paper, you skip right over those, the valleys, and you're only hitting the hills in the paper, and you'll get a rough, yucky edge. And you're really going to see that when I do this down. But you know what? I'm not worried about it too much, because those cactus needles are not white. They are, they're kind of like a yellowish brown color. Now, I will say this, if I were going to redo this, you're probably going to think this is crazy, but I might have just very lightly masked out the needles, did those first initial layers, and then I probably would have taken the masking fluid off and then painted again and let that color seep into the area that I had just taken the masking fluid off. And then maybe, just delicately gone around the needles. I don't know. The needles are a tough one to figure out, but there really is a couple of different things. And again, I'm going to show you how I'm going to correct those mistakes. Don't know if I'll get it all done, but you'll get the idea when I do it. So let's see, what time is it? 7:48. We're getting close to starting, so we'll let everybody show up. And please don't forget, once I am done with the live stream, it converts over and you can view it as a replay. I know people get really confused about that, and for those of us that did not grow up in the internet era, sometimes it's a little bit harder for the rest of us to figure some of that out. And I am still learning about YouTube and Zoom. And if any of you are going to be joining me next week on that Zoom, it's going to be a lot different. It will be in real time. You can show your face. You can have your audio on when you want to ask a question, and it's all real time. There's not this delay like there is with YouTube. I think you've all probably noticed when you ask a question, there's about a 6 to 10 second delay. So with Zoom, what's nice is I can stop. Everybody can turn their microphones on, and one at a time we can talk in real time. I can see what you're painting, and so I actually prefer Zoom than doing these live streams. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to do them on YouTube. I think I'm going to completely transition over to Zoom, and then I'm going to feed my free ones over into YouTube that way. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that. I'll let everybody know. But so let me know if anybody has any questions, and again, I'll try to stop and answer them. But I'm pretty excited about doing the blossom. It's so pretty. There's just such delicate shadows that you could easily spend, a week on the blossom. But what I really want to show you is why I'm painting with the 3 colors, why I don't just have that palette full of 30 colors. Sometimes when you look at something like this, you think, oh, I need this color, and I need this shadow color, and I need these 3 yellows, and I need these 4 blues. And so, and that's where it gets so confusing. So really, I know that I'm teaching you by actually painting an image, but really what this is all about is simplifying the process, learning how to paint values, learning how to build those values with just those 3 colors, learning how to create dull colors and bright colors. And when I say dull, I don't mean muddy. There's a big difference between muddy colors and dull colors. Dull just means that you're toning down that brightness of that color. Another word for it would be saturation and unsaturation. So that's really what I am trying to get through to you and to teach you, is how to start out with 3 colors, simplifying it, and really getting some beautiful values and saturations. And so what you're having to do is you're really having to think. Instead of letting that paint think for you, you're having to figure it out. If you're not using, and I know I've talked about this, checking the time, don't use opera. Stick with Quinacridone Rose or Quinacridone Magenta. Yes, it's not as bright and as beautiful as that opera, but opera has a dye in it that is going to fade out. I don't care where you live or how much you keep it out of the light, it's going to fade out. So why not use colors that are permanent and are going to stay there, so that you know that painting is going to last for years. So when you are sticking with 3 colors, it's up to you to figure out, how am I going to make this area look really bright? Okay, I'm going to have to use a complementary color across from the color wheel. How am I going to make this yellow stand out and be really bright? I'm going to have to use a complementary color. How am I going to get this white area to look really white? I'm going to have to go with darker values. So those are really the things I am trying to teach you. Not so much how to paint this image, whether it is an ocean, a landscape, a cityscape. All of this applies to all those different genres of painting. So I didn't really brush on that a lot yesterday, but I really stick with painting with those 3 colors and paying attention to how you get those super dark values. So, okay, we're getting close to start time, and Melissa's saying hi from Colorado. Hi there. Hope your weather is good. We're having beautiful weather right now. It's just gorgeous. Was it a week ago? Two weeks ago, we had a massive storm. It actually knocked down trees. There was a little bit of a tornado in one of our outlying areas. So it was a really scary storm. We've had a lot of rain, which we've needed. We're in an extreme drought right now, as I'm pretty sure you've all seen on the news. So anyhow, hi from wherever you're at, and I'll try not to go just off onto other things. Hello from Ormond by the Sea in Florida. Oh, Tanya, hi. Good, you definitely found the link then. And I hope you're not in one of those areas that was hit by the hurricane. And I hope everybody down there is okay. So, and then Belinda here, Oregon. Good morning. And yeah, hope you're all noticing I'm a little bit more lively today. I'm actually thinking a little bit more about what I really should have been talking about before we got started yesterday morning. So let's see, I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna flip down and I'm gonna show you how badly I did on this masking fluid. So, whoops, wrong controller there. Okay, here we go. All right, it's yeah, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. Yeah, you can really, this is so bad up here. You can see, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Okay, let me scoop my water over some. Ugh, it's, yeah. Not very good, so I'm gonna have to fix that. Okay, let's see what other questions are coming up before I actually go any farther. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it's not letting me. Oh, no wonder I need to lift this up to see some more comments. Oh, Paula in Pine Top. Hi, good morning, Paula. Okay, everybody's just saying good morning, so good morning, everybody. All right. Let's see here. So I definitely have to fix some of those areas. And this is what I'm talking about when you're not paying attention. Some of this was my fault. Some of this was because I was trying out that new Daniel Smith bottle and I was squeezing it and oh my gosh, just terrible. Those areas are just awful. Of course, these areas are going to be really dark because those are hidden in the shadows. So yeah, I definitely have a little bit of cleaning up to do. And I'm going to start. I'm going to show you what I am going to do for that. All right. So I'm going to come over to my colors. You probably noticed I cleaned off my palette and I tried to adjust my lighting a little bit more so that you're not seeing that glare right there. So I'm going to go ahead and over here, I'm just going to put a little bit of blue. A little bit of yellow. And some of that red. And I'm making, remember yesterday how we were doing that. And you can see that there's too much red in there, I think. So I'm coming back into the blue and look at that. Now it's too much blue. Now I've added a little bit more yellow. So I think that's a little bit better. Now it's a little bit more towards a cool dark value. So let's see, I'm going to go with my number 2 and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to fix these little spines. Here we go. Now what I'm going to do, I need a lighter yellow. So what normally, I don't like to clean my palette off. Normally, I want to keep all those beautiful areas and then they dry out and they're really concentrated. But, you know, I only have so much space on this whole area. So it's the, you know, of course, just like when you're watching TV, it has a lot to do with, you know, the space, the 16:9 ratio. So I have to paint with a very, very small palette. Okay, so I need a little bit more blue. I'm trying to make that green again. And you know what, this is actually a good thing because yesterday I was mentioning that if you go away from a painting for a while and you can't remember what colors you use. Well, this time, this way, you don't have to because you've got your basic 3 colors. So I just added a little bit more yellow, trying to get it close. There. Now I feel like that's pretty close to that color. I'm going to try it right here. I think I need a little bit more yellow. I'm going to switch back to my 2-aught. A little bit more yellow. That's a little bit better. Oh, and I just want to mention too that I figured out one of my issues with having a little bit of freezing has to do with the fact that everybody right now in the morning, they're, you know, working from home. And I didn't think about that because all of my other streams have been on basically on the weekend. So I think that was causing, oops, I forgot to stop my, okay, now it's on manual, so it won't go out of focus. Sorry about that. So you can see how I used that really dark value and straightened up that needle. You can see it right here. Okay, let's get right next to this one. Oh, phew! Ew! Oh, excuse me. Whew. Okay, that's a little bit better. So don't do what don't do what I did. You're going to cause a lot of problems for yourself. Like I could have completely avoided this by just being a little bit more careful. But if you did have a problem, at least you can see how you can correct that. And masking fluid has its place. But it can definitely be problematic if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. Now, I'm cleaning up these, but these you're not going to really see because as I'm looking at my image, well, oh, those two definitely you're going to see, but that one down there is pretty dark. So it's important that I still clean these ones off. Clean them up, I should say. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Now I'm going to go back over here. Oh, wait, whoops. Okay, let's fix that little... Clean that up. And that right there is actually another shadow. I'm just getting that a little bit more yellow. There we go. I'm going to try to blend it in. Well, that's a little bit better. And that is actually, So I really had a problem there. The shadow was over there. I thought that was a needle. I wasn't paying attention. I'll keep coming back to that little area and I'll fill it in and keep adding layers till eventually it matches that background color. So I'm grabbing a little bit of blue along with that yellow and green, and I'm just going to add a little bit more shadow right in this area. Oh, so Tanya, I'm going to stop here for a sec. Tanya's asking, can we use a candle or some type of wax pencil in lieu of masking fluid? I have seen people using wax pencils, but you won't be able to get it up. And if you use a candle, it's going to sink into the paper and you will not be able to get it up. All right, let's go back over and make sure I have plenty of this little yellow green area. Adding a tiny bit of the red. I'm not going to over worry these. Whoops, forgot to move over so you can see what I'm doing. I was working right in this little area, filling in some of that, some of those spots right there. And then this is kind of a mess. So I'm going to take a little bit of that shadow color here. And a shadow comes over here. That's a pretty dark area. There's a shadow that comes all the way. And I can see this is actually a shadow. So that kind of fixed that little area. All right, and then I'm going to come back over in this little area. Definitely have to darken some of these shadows. There we go. So what you may have to do too, if you have to clean up some of those edges, you either have to make a super, super dark matching color, or you have to go over it a few times, but so you notice there was actually no needles right there. It was just shadow. So I'm going to back this out a little bit. And I'm going to really have to keep working on that area. But I'm going to stop for a minute. And let's see what questions we have. Oh, good. Melissa commented about the same thing. Yeah, you can't paint over wax. You can, but it's gonna stay there. So it would have to be a color that would match your paper color. And Lynn's asking, would I have done all the masking with a brush instead? Yes, I would have, and I had said this before we got started, I would have gone with a very, very small brush. And I probably would have spent a couple of hours just really being very careful with those shadows. So that was my fault. And okay, so now I know, be a little bit more careful when I'm masking for the tutorials. Okay, let's make some more dark there. And I shouldn't be doing that with a tiny brush. Let's go with a number 2. Okay, there we go. Now I can go back to my smaller brush. Grab some of that lighter color. Okay, I just want to point something out. Right now, this looks a little rough, but it's going to really clean up well when I put those colors in there. And I know a lot of people get frustrated at this point. You start thinking, this is looking terrible. And sometimes I even struggle a little bit with that. But keep going, keep adding color, keep defining things, and it will start to come together. And this one will definitely start coming together as soon as I finish up in those little areas. But I want to just kind of clean up a little bit more on these needles. These ones down here don't look too bad. And I think that's because this is where I started when I was trying that newer masking fluid. Boy, that was a big mistake. I won't do that again. And let's see what other people are saying about masking fluid. Mary's saying she uses a dipping pen. Yep. And Sherry has a set of sculpting tools. Yes, those work great. And if anybody saw my masking video, I love this little thing. It's a little embossing tool. It has tiny tips on the end, little ball tips. And I love this thing. It works really well. Let me grab another one. Here's another tool that works really well while we're on the subject of masking. So this is used for oil painting. So it's got a rubbery end, and then it's got this nice pointy area. This is what I do if I have to fill in a big area. And then as the masking fluid dries, I can just pull it off. But that being said, I had decided to try this Daniel Smith Artist Masking Fluid. And you're supposed to take this part off, and then you put this little plastic tip on there and you squeeze it out. And it was just, I think it stuck too hard to the paper. I'm not happy with that. So I thought I would try it. And, whoa, oops. Give me a second here. Yikes. Okay, have some paint brushes take off. All right. Okay, so back to this little area. Okay, I'm gonna go back over here. I'm just gonna clean that up right there. Honestly, if I had enough time, you would see me, I could spend a couple hours cleaning these up. Again, these ones aren't too bad. And it's, you know, they look really bad right now because I don't have the color on them. And once I get that color on, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go back and forth with my brush. And when I do that, it's going to help blend and soften those edges. There we go, there's another little area. It's kind of interesting. I've kind of gotten away from masking over the last few years, except for on my florals when I have little areas, little, you know, the little center area, the stamens that I have to mask. Sometimes I just think it's easier just to paint around stuff. One other area I really need to fix is up in here. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on those needles and those pretty little white areas. Okay, let's see here. Where do I want to start? I think I'm going to start up at the top. So I'm going to pull this down a little bit and I'm going to zoom in some more. I just have to keep in mind when I zoom in, sometimes I get to painting and I don't see that I go off the screen. So I'll try to keep that. Try to keep that in mind as I'm painting. All right, I'm going to switch to a number 2. Here's what I am going to do. I'm going to take this little area right here and clean it off. I'm going to take some of this yellow. And I'm going to try to match that really pretty kind of yellowish, orangish color that you see there. Let me quickly get that blue out of there. I'm going to add a tiny bit of red. I'm going to see how this does. I'm going to grab a little sheet of paper. Now it looks pretty darn close. I add a little bit more red. think I need to thicken those colors up a little bit. I think that's good. Now, even though this is a small area, I'm going to wet it. Okay, here's something interesting. So now that I'm really looking at what is involved there, I can see some pretty cool things. For instance, that shadow comes in a little bit farther. There's a little bit of a sculpted edge around that little flat, I don't know what you would call that, a blossom area maybe, where the cactus needles come out of, but it's actually kind of cool. And then there's a little shadow coming off of that needle. And then there's the little area right there that has that orangish color that I just kind of made. Now, so here's where you are going to decide how much detail you want to put in this. I mean, obviously we could spend 8 hours a day for 4 days just working on the background and the details, but we don't have time for that. But I love that all that is in there, and I'm going to see how much of it I can get with the limited amount of time that we have. Okay, so now that I'm seeing that, instead of doing anything else with that white, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2-aught, so you can see that that brush it's really tiny. So it's a 2-aught brush, and now that my, let me get something moved out of the way here. Now that my dark color here has kind of thickened up, I'm just taking a little bit of that. I'm making sure I roll my brush. And where this comes in, was a little bit too wet. Grab some yellow. I'm just trying to warm that shadow up a little bit. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can kind of see what effect that's giving in that area. Okay. Just softening that a little bit with my brush. I'm gonna have to wait till that dries, and then I can come in Actually, no, because I want to get those needles done. I want to get at least one little needle area finished. All right, so now I'm going to put that brush down. Now I want to make up a little area. It'll be all right if it kind of runs into that really light area I just made. Did you see how the yellow pushed that red out? I actually use that to my advantage sometimes when I'm painting. And a tiny bit of blue. A little bit more. Needs to be more yellow. And needs a little bit more blue. Now I think it needs more red. Oh, I'm getting there. A little bit more yellow. Okay, let's try that. Let's see how that looks. It's still kind of light. I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. That's why it's great to start out with fresh colors so that you can really build some very dark colors. Now let's see. I'm liking that, but I still need some more yellow. Still need more yellow. Oops, there we go. Much better. Okay, I'm happy with that. It's nice and thick, so I can thin it out as I need it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wet this needle right here. And I'm just going to drop in that color. I'm going to grab some yellow. Now I'm going to come over here because I've got a lot lighter values in there. So I'm going to pick up some of that lighter color. I'm gonna use my 0. Oops, let me wet it first. Now this one's really dark. Let's back it out and see how it looks. I'm going to tone, now that it's getting lighter where we're at, I'm going to tone down the lighting a little bit. There we go. Okay. I think I'm liking that. What I want to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and put water in each one of these little needles. Then I'm going to pick up some of that darker color. See, that's another area that needed a little bit of green right along there. Boy, that certainly helps when you put in those darker colors on the needles. Then I'm kind of varying it with that yellow. The other thing I'm going to do, as soon as I get these other colors in, is I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to go over the whole area and I'm going to soften everything. Dipping my brush in water so I can get some of that background color. Come into these needles that are behind here. Now I don't want to cover them up completely. I want them to kind of come through a little bit. So what I did, you probably saw, I picked up some of that green and just added it right around the edge. Now what I need to do, and I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to zoom in again. Now I'm going to grab some of that color. Go back the other direction. And that's a great effect. So I was able to take some of that background color. Oh, that is so annoying when you get those spots on there. Excuse me while I try to get this off. Can't even believe, you know, you think this is why I don't like things about YouTube. So I had to report that, and now I've got to remove it. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. Well, that's distracting, isn't it? I really love how that's looking. That looks pretty cool right up there. Now I'm going to do the same thing up here. And again, I'm going to really have to soften those edges. I'm not even bothering with the water right now. I just want to blend those out a little bit. Now I'm going to get my scrubber brush. I'm going to use my, I missed that area right there. And I'm just using, right now, instead of using my my Dick Blick Wonder White scrubber brushes, I'm just using an old one that is it's a old oil painting brush that I wrapped with tape around the end, and then I cut off, so I have this nice little sharp end. Just going to kind of connect those. And these need some help. So what happens when, even when you're super careful and you're using masking fluid, it just, the edges are so harsh. Okay, I'm gonna put that back. And I'm gonna go in with my I'm back to my double aught. Gonna work work on over here. Oh, okay, well, just leave that. Ooh, I just saw down there, I have to do the same thing right in that little area. So another thing now I'm doing, because I don't want these to look dull, so I picked up a little bit of red, and then what I'm going to do in that area is I'm going to fix those needles by going back over it in between and getting that really, really dark, dark value in there. But I just noticed it would help if I finish these needles up here. And let's get these. Let's back it out a little bit again. Okay, I think it's really starting to come together. Obviously, what I'm gonna have to do, because I don't want to keep fixing this and spend hours on this, so after I'm done streaming, I'm gonna go in and really clean up some of those areas. And yeah, so only because it's gonna bug me. I don't like to let things go like that. But I'm definitely going to come in there while we're doing this. I'm going to build up some of those values as soon as it dries. Now, I said this yesterday. I don't want to focus too much on it. And again, I think that's why I'm going to go over it with a wet brush so we can soften everything and get out all those harsh lines. So in the meantime, let me just keep going. And as I'm painting, I've just decided I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest of these bristles first before I go back in and try to finish up those centers. Okay, let me just take a break here and see Teresa. Oh, thank you for reporting those bots. Gosh, isn't that annoying? You can't even enjoy painting without just... I don't know what they think you're going to do. My son says that they do that to everybody. So that's just, we all know that's really annoying. So thank you for that. And then Linda, Debbie, did you get my prickly pear photo? No thorns on that one, laugh out loud. I did. Thank you. It was so beautiful. I thought maybe I had emailed you back yesterday, but maybe I didn't. Well, I will tell you one thing. I now know what to do when I redo this with the thorns. I know what to do now. So there you go. Just goes to show I don't know everything. Oh, that's actually a shadow right there. Okay. So is that. Oh, that looks a lot better down there. It really makes a difference when you add in those shadows. You know, I started to, I'll be honest with everyone, I was really nervous doing this at first because I've never done a cactus. I've never done cactus needles. But you know what? I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing that I'm doing this. And I'm doing it while you're watching me. So you can see that, you know, it's all about problem solving constantly. You're constantly trying to figure out how you're going to attempt something. And then it's about not giving up. I mean, I could easily say, if I was by myself, oh, I'm starting over. But you know what? I'm just going to keep going and I'm going to figure out how I am going to fix these areas once I'm alone and I do one little area, and then I'll be able to come back and show you what I did. And sometimes, honestly, as you're painting, again, it's about solving problems. For instance, just because I say, you know, I think I'm going to do this to this certain area, as I'm going along, I might have to change that strategy. Like I realized, you know what? I don't need to add water to these needles. They're so tiny that I can just go ahead and put the color on as I'm painting. So I adjusted, and that's what you need to do as you're painting. You know, and the other thing too is always keep in mind, you're always going to go around and you're going to readjust and readjust and readjust a value here and a value there. And look and think, you know, do I need a little bit more color in that area? Do I need to darken the value here? Because at one point you'll think, ooh, that looked really dark. And then all of a sudden you'll come back, you'll put another color in another area, and you go, wow, now I have to readjust that area. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you're all watching me, and it's honestly a little bit scary because at this moment I'm not very happy with how these turned out, and I'm doing this live and in front of a lot of people, and my goodness, it's kind of a scary thing. So again, I'm going to go back. Once we're done, and I'll spend a couple hours just kind of fixing all this. Yep. So hopefully that gives you the confidence to continue on with the painting and not worry so much if something isn't looking exactly perfect. Honestly, I'm trying to learn not to be so harsh when I'm painting. Sometimes, and this doesn't happen to me very often anymore, but it used to be I would just throw myself on the bed and just think I was a total failure if something didn't turn out perfect. But you know what? I'm just going to give it a little bit of time. And once we start the blossom, let's see, what time is it? It's 8:50. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling these in, and then we're going to start that blossom. I'm going to stop worrying about this for now, and we'll come back. So like one thing I'm definitely wanting to do is build some deeper values as I'm going around, and I think that's going to help. Okay, so I'm going to stop just for a sec, and I'm going to read some of the comments now that you've been listening to me with my stream of consciousness. Let's see. Okay. Mary says, it does. The shadows give it depth. It really does. And Lynn says, I appreciate you fixing things live so that we can see what we need to do. Oh, thank you for that. It makes me feel better. You know, it's such a, I know I'm rambling as I paint, but it's just like speaking, you know, in front of a huge crowd of people. I guess it's normal for all of us to feel everybody's watching you, right? Everybody. You're being, all eyes are on you. And I guess sometimes it's just a little nerve-wracking. And as I paint, I'm learning to get over that. It's still a little scary sometimes. And you just feel like if you fail at something, wow, everybody's right there watching you fail. I think this helped too. I added a little bit, I saturated those just a little bit more. So now I feel like I'm really getting into the groove, and I'm going to go ahead and get these ones finished up. Well, not finished, but let's get them basically there. And then I can move on to starting the blossom. Let's get over into these needles. I just found another area that is a shadow. That's helping a little bit. Just defining those shadows. Get the one that's going right through there. Okay, now I can go back to and add some yellow. yeah, I still kind of have to fill in those little white areas. Whoops. I'll have to clean that up. I kind of got my hand in that area. Okay. So far, I don't think it's horrible. Let's see what some other questions or comments. So let's see. Loretta. Correcting problems in painting is so valuable, thanks. My big blob of masking is causing me grief. Do you correct color with thin washes or a thicker paint? Well, so my eyesight, obviously, I need glasses so I can even see from this distance. If I were really correcting these, all you would be seeing is my head. I would be having my really small brush and I would have like little different areas of thick and thin, and I would just be trying to smooth them out. So obviously, what you want to do is not have to get to that point in the first place. So before I go on to the other questions, and now that I'm really watching what I'm doing, here are the steps I think I would do. I wouldn't mask first. I would go on and I would, if you remember from yesterday, I would add that yellow and then I would stop. Then I would go ahead and very carefully mask out with that very super thin brush like a 5/0. I would go ahead and mask out those needles. And then I would let it dry everything really well. And then I would take off, well, I'm sorry, no, I wouldn't take off the masking. I'd keep that masking on and I'd go ahead and build all those dark values. And I would just go ahead and finish up those background shadows and the little areas where the cactus kind of turns in. Then once I feel like all that would be done, then I would go ahead and pull off that masking fluid. And now when you pull it off, you're going to see those little cactus needles would be like a yellow color. And then you could go ahead and fill in with your mixes and add like little shadows on the side of the needles. So I've learned something. If I were going to do it, that's how I would do it now. So, and Mary, she's saying, I can so relate to you. I am also hard on myself. We all have to remember how much we learn by our mistakes. Yeah, just exactly like I was saying. Now I know, and I actually want to redo this. So I want to do it big, and then I can keep everybody updated. I'll show you exactly how it's going to work out, my idea about putting in that yellow and then going ahead and masking it out and then finishing the needles. And I'm going to see how that turns out, but I think that's gonna work better. And Sherry, hey, it made me feel comfortable that we're all on this adventure together. I'm going to make all my mistakes on this one, and the next one will be easier. Thank you, Sherry. It makes me feel so good. Exactly, just what I was saying. I'm making my mistakes now. You're seeing my mistakes. I am working through my problems instead of giving up, instead of saying, oh, I'm never doing these needles again. This is just too hard. Nope. I am I'm going, I'm going to get this finished, and I'm going to solve these problems. And a lot of times that's what it is. It is solving problems. And so Teresa is saying, I really appreciate you sharing your trials and errors with us. I am learning so much. I just need to gather up the courage to attempt to paint this. Teresa, trust me, you can do it. Think about what I was saying earlier. There are 54 approximate people viewing this right now. So that means everybody's watching me. And maybe that's a good thing, again, because maybe I might have given up. I hope I wouldn't have, and just started over. But I'm glad I'm going and finishing this. Yes, I've made some mistakes. I know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to walk everybody through it when I get to that point. And let's see, Linda's saying, I feel like I really learn a lot from your mistakes. And this is looking pretty darn fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. You know, boy, as somebody said earlier, we're all just kind of on an adventure, right? You know, some of this is we're supposed to be doing this because we like it and it's fun. You know, if we keep beating ourselves up, it's not so much fun anymore, is it? So, yeah, that's just so important. We're supposed to be having fun. It's painting. We're not building a rocket ship and going to the moon, are we? Nope, we're just trying to have some fun. And my goodness, it's such a crazy world anymore. I just want to enjoy things. And painting brings me joy. And again, please don't be scared to try something. You know, it's supposed to be fun. Just attempt it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Like with me, you're going to go, oh boy. Oh boy, I should have done something different. Okay, I'm going to try it again. And if any of you, right there's a good example. I'm going to get that scrubber brush again. Scrub out that little white area. And if any of you have painted with me before, I know quite a few of you have, you know that I have said I've painted some of my paintings over 3 times because I'm just determined I'm gonna get it. So please don't be afraid. Don't ever be intimidated, anybody, by another artist. That was my mistake. I have to tell you, my biggest mistake was watching so many other artists that I was intimidated. I thought there's no way I'm ever going to be able to paint like that. And something to always keep in mind, you are never going to see an artist's worst paintings or mistakes, whether it's at an art show or it's at a gallery. You're not going to see that. You're only going to see their best. I'm just kind of softening some of these areas. So trust me, always keep that in mind. Nobody starts out knowing everything about painting, so keep going. I'm just softening all these edges because they're too harsh too, and I think that's helping. And then I'm going to go and add some color. And right here, there is a lot going on in that little area because there's that main leaf, so I don't want to do too much right in there. I'm gonna kind of leave that alone, and I'll come back to it towards the end. Let's see, and I'm gonna soften this area, and again, I'll come back over here and add in some of the color. And right there. Boy, those little spots there, they're a little tough. But, I'm pretty excited. Okay, so I haven't looked up there in a little bit. You know what? That actually is looking pretty good. I think I was being a little bit too hard on myself. One thing I notice is it's really popping forward. So I'm liking that. I'm happy about that. Now imagine how it's going to look when I go ahead and cross as soon as it dries and really move those that needle that's right there. Once I put it right in front of that little area, it's really going to make that come forward. Okay, so I'm just going to soften a little bit right there. Then I'll be able to come back in again. So I'm just solving problems. I see. Just fixing some problems. Harsh edges, which always look wrong. Okay. And you know what's interesting? I think that you learn so much more when you're problem solving than when everything just comes out exactly right. And then you're thinking, where's the challenge? Sometimes there's not a whole lot of challenge. Okay, I'm putting that down. I'm feeling a little bit better. Let's got it up. Okay, I think it's looking pretty good. I think what I need to do now is, again, now I can come in and add some of that yellow. Just kind of dropping it in there. Not trying to be perfect with it. Because again, then I'm going to come back over with those darker shadows. There was actually a little one right there too, and I missed that. That's okay. So now it's softened them a little bit. They're still coming forward. They're just going to need a little work. Okay, now this one up in here. Let me just quickly come up in here and just darken those a little bit more. Okay. All right. Whew. I'm feeling a little better. Okay, so now I can relax a little bit. It's not, my background is not a disaster. Again, there's a whole lot of things I can come back in and fix. And so I'm going to take a breather and see what other people are saying. And I think I might have already said that. Loretta said, so exciting to be on this adventure. It is. And you know what? I know we're not all together, but it kind of feels like we're together and it's fun. I'm just glad that we're all doing something that, you know, it's making our brains grow a little bit and we're all learning and it's just fun. And Lynn, it's live, authentic, and realistic. Love learning together. This is what I love about this. Your teaching is transparent and realistic. Thank you so much. It's so hard not to feel like you're just a bumbling idiot. Thank you for saying that. That makes me feel good. And Sherry, me too. Thank you, Sherry. And Lynn, okay, question. What size will you paint the next one? You know, I want to do the next one big, like say, maybe 15 by 15. So obviously it would be a heck of a lot bigger than this. But you know what I think? It will be easier to get in those needles. You know, you're not trying to fiddle around with such a tiny, tiny part. So I honestly think making it big is going to look pretty amazing. Okay, so we're going to leave that background alone for a while. And let's get started on this flower. And let me get some fresh water. I'll be right back. All right, I've got some nice clean water. And so let's talk about, let me get some new paper towels. Let's talk about this for a sec, what I am going to do. So I haven't thought about it a whole lot before I did this tutorial. One reason is because I want you to hear, again, my thought process about how I want to attempt this. And here's what I think I want to do. If you had watched me mask off all these little stamens, I kind of did it very loose. This is one case where I think that was going to be a good idea. Why? Because it's almost impossible to try to mask off every little tiny stamen, and the things up at the top are called the pistils. So the main like blade is the stem, and then the thing up at the top is called the pistil. So you've got the stamen and the pistil. And then you've got this beautiful big area right here that I outlined, but I didn't fill in, because what we're going to do on this is we're going to do what some people like to call negative painting. So I'm going to fill it in, so with kind of a yellowish green color. And then once we do that, here, let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. And then, let's see, I'll put this on manual so you don't see it getting out of focus as I lift my brush. Okay, good, that looks good. So I'm gonna fill this in with yellow, and then we're gonna go in with some green, and then we're gonna kind of paint around some of those areas right there and there and there that are really sticking out. And then we're gonna kind of do the same in this area. So we're gonna wet that and probably just go ahead and wet the whole thing along with this background. Okay, so now that I'm looking at it, let me think about this for a sec. I think I'm just gonna wet the whole thing, and I'm gonna very lightly just drop in some of the yellow where I'm seeing it. Let me back out a little bit. Let's get the whole flower in there. Okay. So I'm gonna wet this whole thing. I think this is gonna be the easiest way to attack this. I'm going to wet the whole thing, and I'm gonna drop in yellow wherever I see it, and especially concentrating on this area. All the yellows in these areas in the shadows, basically those are all very dulled down yellows, kind of like with what we've already been painting with, but really thinned out. So that's how I think that's going to be the best way to attempt this. So I'm going to try to clean this out. Don't want to get any other colors in here yet. I want to start off with some nice clean yellow. So what I am actually going to do is I'm going to grab my yellow, because that's contaminated a little bit, and I'm going to put some fresh yellow right in the center there. And I have nice clean water. And this time I'm going to grab my big dragon's tongue brush from Cheap Joe's. It holds a lot of water. All right, so right here on this edge, you can probably see that I dropped some water, so I'm not going to really worry about that right now. It'll start blending out a little bit as I'm painting. And if somebody would do me a favor and report that bot again, that is just making me so mad. Hopefully somebody did. Let me pull this up so I can see. That's just so annoying. If somebody wouldn't mind, it doesn't have to be me that reports it. Okay, so here I go. Oh, while I have my big brush, I'm also going to use my number 2. Why? Because I want to make sure that I don't get this, I want a nice clean edge. Okay, so I'm going to start putting in that water. For this, you're going to want a lot of water on this. Don't be stingy with your water. You can see I'm going pretty close. I'll use my smaller brush to get right into those edges. Okay, let's see what Teresa's saying. Just report it again. Should I block first or report? Well, what I did was I reported and then blocked it. I don't know how much that helps. But thank you, Teresa. And then, of course, up into my little petal that I went over yesterday. There's another one right there. Now, I've been going along my edges for a lot of years. If you're new to painting, just try to turn. It helps to turn when you're trying to get right up close with the water. And don't worry if certain areas seem like they're starting to dry, because all you have to do is just add a little bit more water and it will, kind of suck right into the areas that are starting to dry. So don't feel like don't get into a panic. Just drop some more water into those areas. Okay, so now what I do is I usually tip it a little bit and I look around in the light to make sure that I got all the water. Okay. There we go. Now, while I'm letting that sink in, I'm giving that just a few seconds to sink in. I'm going to take my number 6, and I'm going to take my yellow and make it pretty thin. Okay. See, everything in this area has a lot of yellow, a lot of bright yellow. So I'm going to try to stay away from areas that look like they're really, really, what would the word be? A little bit lighter in value, or look a little cooler, if that makes sense. Like, look at this petal right here. if you look at that shadow that's right there, it tends to be, it's cooler. It's more of a cool yellow gray. And this is more of a warm yellow gray right in here. And then, so what we'll do is we'll go back into that area where we've got to darken that shadow, and we'll mix up some shadow colors for there and all these little areas. So basically what I'm doing is I'm paying close attention. I'm seeing where I see the most yellow. And I'm just allowing that water to blend it out. So make sure, it's really important, make sure that you have plenty of water on your paper. Now, if you can see what I'm doing here, I'm thickening up my yellow a little bit, and I'm going to be putting it right in those areas where you see that really dark green, and right along here. So in a way, I'm kind of already starting to build that value. And now that the water is really sinking into the paper, look at how well it's staying right where I want it. Okay, now I'm kind of rinsing my brush so I can get some thinner yellow. Coming up into these back petals. Here's where I don't want you to feel like you have to rush. If you have enough water on your paper, even if you have to do it 2 or 3 times if you need to. You're going to have plenty of time. That paper's going to stay wet for a while. And then again, I know you've heard me say this often if you've watched me. It also depends on where you live. If you happen to live in a really humid area, you know, the water might not start drying for a while, so you have a little bit more time to work. Look at how it's just nice, soft blends. And I'm looking sideways at my paper, and I can see that it's still nice and glossy. If you notice that your paper is starting to, that shine is start to disappear, you might want to stop, and then you'll have to wet it again. Now, adding this yellow, this doesn't mean that this is going to be all the yellow I'm going to have. As I start painting and adjusting values, I'm obviously going to have to keep maybe adding yellow. But even for me, value is actually, it's a little bit hard to see at first. So I try to go light with my layers and then start building on that. Some people are able to just right away start putting on really dark colors. Yeah, I don't, that doesn't work well for me. Oh, it's gonna be so pretty. It's just really going to stand out. Okay. So you can see right in those areas, I'm already starting to build the base of those colors. I'm going to put down that brush and I'm going to pick up at my number 2. I'm going to pick up some pretty thick yellow. Kind of staying away. I'm not getting too close to those edges. See how as my paper is starting to lose its gloss, I should have said this earlier, now that my paper is losing its gloss, I shouldn't have said that you can't go back, that you have to stop and wait till it's dry. What I should have said, if you feel confident enough, and I've learned this over the years, is that as long as your paint, the consistency of the paint, matches the water on the paper, you can add little bits of color here and there, and it won't blossom. And I think that's about all I can do. It's getting pretty dry. It may sound a little confusing as I'm describing the water and how much paint, but trust me, once you start painting a lot, you start understanding how your colors are playing with the water, and that's another reason why you want to stick with a limited palette when you're first starting, is because you start knowing, like say that Nickel yellow will blossom out and it'll push other colors away. And then you can think to yourself, how can I use that to my advantage? Or you start knowing, like maybe that ultramarine blue is really strong and it will overwhelm the other 2 colors. So you start learning eventually all the little characteristics of each color. If you have a giant palette, it's hard to really intimately know your colors. And that's really important. So it's not just about the value. It's also about knowing those colors. And once you know exactly what they're going to do, you start having a little bit more confidence when you're putting your color down. Okay, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to let that dry, and let's see. Okay, so let's see what else happened with these goofy bots. Let's see. Oh, Teresa's saying when you report they disappear. Okay, well, at least they're gone. Thank goodness. We'll just all try to ignore that. Thank you, ladies, for doing that for me. I really appreciate it. So I am pretty excited about how that is looking. So now I'm going to go ahead and dry it. I think I want to say too, you might want to, this would be a good time to kind of take a break if you want, because I want this to get really dry. So I'm going to go ahead and finish drying. Yeah. Oh, thanks everybody for reporting them again. My gosh, I was like, that was a lot. And then let's see. Okay, Teresa's asking, if you're drying over masking fluid, would you set your dryer to the cool setting so you do not disturb the masking? What I would do is keep it. I know how far I can get from my paper. I can get about that far, and I know that my masking fluid is gonna it will come up, and I'm also keeping it on the low setting. If you've not used masking fluid before, try to keep it at least 6 inches away, and that will you won't cook the masking fluid into your paper. Oops. Almost there. Okay, you probably were watching me with my rubber pickup tool as I was feeling it, as I was drawing it. I noticed that I had some few little pieces of masking fluid, so I had to pick that up. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Couldn't see the bottom chat. Okay. Here we go. Let's zoom back in a little bit to just the flower. So you can see how nicely that the very thin area of the yellow, how it just blended out really nicely. Kind of even stayed where I put it. It blended out a little bit, but I just have nice soft edges. And of course, then I took the thicker yellow, and you notice that I was able to lay it down and it spread out just a little bit, but I don't have any blossoms. And that is why it's important to pay attention to your water on your paper. So pretty soon that just starts becoming second nature, but this is gonna look beautiful. All right. Now I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wet this again. And this time I'm going to make some of that shadow color. So let's move that yellow right back over there. Leave a little bit of it in there. And okay, let's get some blue. Okay, so now I've mixed the yellow and the blue and I've made kind of a green, which obviously that's not the shadow colors. So we're going to pick up a little bit of that red. We're going to keep it really thin. A little bit more red to dull it down. Let's see what we've got. So I've made a nice shadow color, but as I'm looking at those shadows, some areas of those shadows, especially right down in here, are pretty close to that. I'd say they have a little bit more red in them. So I just picked up some red. And that looks pretty close to what's going on down in there. Just about like that. And then other areas are a little bit warmer with that yellow, that, in fact, a little bit more. That might have been too much. Let's see. No, actually, that's going to be perfect for areas right in there. Okay, so now that I've mixed that, I am going to do the same thing. I'm not going to try to get nice sharp edges. I just want to get a basic shadow color in some of those petal areas. Then once we're done with that, we're going to go back and start on, we'll use paint on the dry paper and we'll start defining those petal areas. So I'm going to wet it again. And notice that my yellow has sunk into the paper and it's staying right where I put it. That's why you want transparent staining colors. They sink into the paper. So you're taking all your knowledge about watercolors and saying, okay, how can I achieve layers? How can I achieve glow? How can I build value and good saturation? And that's all coming from transparent, staining permanent colors. If you were doing this with opaque paint, you would not be able to keep going over this. Pretty soon, those colors all together would start muddying because those opaque colors sit on top of the paper. I made sure that I put in my downloads, there's a little sheet in there that talks about color and the colors that I use most often. And I pretty much stick with the same yellow. And actually not sometimes, all the time. And then I'll usually vary my blues depending on what I think I'm seeing in my image that I'm painting. I'll usually vary it between the Quinacridone, the phthalo blues, and they have phthalo blue red shade and phthalo blue green shade. So depending what I'm doing, I'll go between the phthalos and the ultramarine. I love ultramarine when I'm painting flowers because it granulates a little bit, and I love that. And it just has soft, just subtle blends. And then I'll usually vary my red between the Quinacridone Magenta and Quinacridone Rose. And of course, I have my favorite brands, which are mostly M. Graham, but Quinacridone Magenta, M. Graham doesn't make a single pigment color. And that's the other thing. Go through all your pigments and make sure that your pigments are all single, your paints are all single pigment. Paint companies really try to trick you up with that by their fancy, pretty names like Unicorn Pink and Meadow Green. It's how they get you to buy colors. For instance, like when we were talking about how earlier when I made that beautiful burnt sienna, you can buy burnt sienna if you want, but when you're first learning how to paint, why not learn how to mix it? That way it harmonizes with your painting and you don't have to think too hard about having too many colors in there. Okay, looks like I've got paint everywhere. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick with this brush and I'm gonna start just adding a little bit of that shadow color. See how over in this area it looks a little bit more purplish bluish, and all my colors basically kind of run around. That's okay. It's a little bit more yellowish right down in here. Oh, and then this, let's get some more blue in there. I'm gonna pick up a little bit more red. see how I'm thinking in terms of yellow, blue, and red. I'm not thinking of 30 colors. I'm just going, you know what? Let me pick up some red. Why? Because I'm seeing a little bit of red in here. Ooh, no, I'm seeing a little bit of blue over here. So I'm just kind of grabbing from the areas around my palette, maybe picking up from the middle, but I'm only thinking in those 3 colors. And yes, the colors, obviously they're spreading out. Okay, so now right in here, see a little bit more blue. So let me grab a little bit more of that blue. I don't know, when I first started painting and I was trying to figure out shadows, I'd be going, okay, my paper's wet. What do I, what do I need? Do I need burnt sienna? Do I need, you know, Payne's gray? What do I need? Ooh, this is looking really dull. And until I started learning, wow, if you have 3 colors, that's what you're paying attention to. Need a little bit more yellow here, so I picked up a little bit more of the yellow, dropping that right there. It's a little bit more yellow. This shadow is a little bit more yellow and red right here. So now I'm going to pick up some of that red. I think I need a little bit more of that blue. See, I have that bluish green area right there, so I'm going to grab from that. And no, I'm not. I've just looked back and it looks a little bit more red to me. I'm picking up some red. There we go. Try to find a clean area of blue. And a tiny bit of that red. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of that yellow. Right around that outer edge and a little bit more in the center there. Okay, now over, if you notice, a little bit over on that side, things just tend to be a little bit more of the purple bluish shadow color. So let's see, add a little bit more there, a little bit more blue. Notice I kind of stayed away from the edge a little bit. Now I'm going to go back and I'm picking up a little bit of yellow. I'm rinsing my brush and picking up a little bit more of that purple color, like the dusky, it's almost like a dusky shadow color. And now a little bit right into here and right there. I'm rinsing my brush and just picking up a little bit of that, more of a yellow. And I'm going to put that right in there, maybe a little bit more yellow. And I'm going to do the same right up in here. Now right along there. Now I'm rinsing my brush and I'm going to go back to that pinkish grayish color. Look at this lovely shadow right there. Let's pick up a little bit of that That is just so beautiful. That's right in there. And same with up here. And right in there. I'm going to tip it to the side. It's starting to lose its shine. I have to be careful at this point. Oh, yep. So I could definitely see that it was starting to shine. So I'm going to try to feather that out a little bit and quickly finish this up. Yep, you can see how it didn't blend out. So I just added a little bit of water on my brush, not much. Okay, so now I've got some of the basic shadow areas in. So now I can stop and I can dry that. All right, so let's get this little area dried. So hopefully as you're looking at it, you can see that, so let's talk while it's really sinking in and drying. So I knew and know how much paint to put on my brush, how thick it should be, how thin it should be. I'm paying attention to the water level as I was going along. Not so much there, but you see how I fixed that. I started to see that I was starting to lose some of the shine. So what I did was I just took my paper towel and I took the tip of my brush and I just kind of made sure that my brush was just damp and I just kind of blended it out. Now, had I have panicked and said, oh no, there's not enough water there, it's not going to sink in, and then dunked my brush in water and started adding water, you would have seen blossoms going everywhere. So what I'm doing is I'm working with the water in the paper and I'm paying attention to where that water level is at. What's the shine? And I match that with the paint, whether it's thick paint or thin paint. And again, while I was doing this, I wasn't, yes, things are moving over into other areas, but I tried to keep it away from the edges. And at this point, I'm not worrying about the exact shadows. Now that I feel like we've got a really, really good base going on, I can dry it and now I can start picking a petal, going, okay, now let's get this petal finished. Okay, now let's move over to here, and then we'll move over to there. So it really isn't as complicated as it seems to be when you're looking at it. And one thing we're lucky about is that there's no real whites on here. But if there is any little areas that got covered over, I'm going to use my Wonder Whites. These are my favorite scrubber brushes. People are sending me, every once in a while, I'll get a new type of brush. But boy, I just find these are the best brushes, scrubber brushes. They're nice and, let me Let me zoom in while that's drying so you can really see the tip. Let's see, let it focus. So this tip right here, oh, I think, sorry, hold on. I think I need to back out just a hair. There we go. There's only so far I can I can zoom in. So this is the Wonder White. It's the number 2. You can see, let me try to turn this around a little bit at a time. As you can see, the tip is kind of, it's flat, but the very edges of it are rounded off, so it won't make really hard edges. It's nice and firm, yet I can still scrub out without hurting my paper. If you try to do this on 140-pound paper, it doesn't work very well. Okay, let me zoom back out while I'm going to dry this. So I'm gonna let this cool off by itself for a minute. I'm gonna push it away and I'm gonna move my palette forward and I'm gonna try to zoom in on it a little bit. So it's a little bit harder to see it when I have it sitting over here. So let's see. One of the reasons why I wanted to pull this forward while we're waiting for that to finish drying is because I want you to see how up close, how all these colors are blending together. Let me grab, okay, I'll stick with my number 2. Look at how gorgeous these blends are. You can see that they're kind of settling and they kind of move around little areas. As the paint is mixing together, it's just doing interesting things. And then by the time you pick it up again, it's really nice because you have all these different areas. I've got some blue areas over here. If I needed to add more blue, I can just pull it in. Got some gorgeous yellow areas. I just thought this would really help you see my palette a little bit better. And then sometimes what I do is I get really excited because little areas are drying, and then I can come over here and I can pick up some concentrated color and add it wherever I need it. So at this point, I do not want to take any of this color off. I want to leave this color the way it is so that when I come back, and as I'm working, I'm going to keep working a little bit more. I want to get some of those flowers defined, but you can just see that there's just beautiful blends in there, all from those three colors. And then if I want more yellow, I mean, look, I pull that in and look what that yellow does. It just spreads out and it starts combining with the other colors, yet it pushes them away. I just have a beautiful set of very unsaturated reds, yellows, and blues, and all the grays in between. Plus I still have my nice dark greenish color right over here that I'm just leaving off to the side. Okay, so I'm gonna push that back over here, and I'm gonna pull this flower back over. And I'm gonna dry it just a little bit more. I'm gonna zoom out some. I'm just gonna dry it some more. It's getting there. So what I've been doing with my hand is, oh, and if you do this and you're touching your paper, please make sure that your hands are really clean so that you get rid of those oils on your skin. As I was shielding the masking fluid in the center as I was trying to dry those outer petals. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just do a couple more petals. Here we go. So I am going to start, I think I'm going to start over here with that shadow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it this direction because I want to make sure that I get a nice edge on that back petal. Okay. And again, hopefully as you're painting, you are making sure that you have a nice big drawing instead of just trying to look off into the corner at my my little one, which is just there for reference, so you know you can notice what I'm doing. But hopefully as you're painting with a bigger image. Okay, so I've got all my colors over there. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got my number, what is it? My number two. My favorite brush. Okay, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab a little bit more yellow. And this time I'm staying in that border. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that magenta. So I want that, I want all these petals now to be separated from all the other petals because they're shadows, you know, in front of and behind. Let me get a little cloth, paper towel. Let me zoom in on that so you can get a better idea of what I'm doing. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. Let me see if I can brighten, let me up my light a little bit and see if that helps, which it does. I have to adjust my lighting as I'm painting because I'm right next to my window. Picking up a little bit of that red. Now I'm going to come in and grab some blue. I'm going to wet this area a little bit. That was too big of an area to try to do it as wet on dry. Okay, now I can come in here, grab some of that blue. And some of that red. And again, this is a good example of why, if I would have had 30 colors, I would have had to stop to think, oh my gosh, do I have a purple? What does that purple look like? Is it close to this purple? Instead, I'm just picking up my yellow, or my blue, and a little bit of my red, and I just have a little bit on the tip of my brush, and look at that gorgeous shadow. Look at how beautiful that is, and it doesn't look boring, and frankly, I just do not like Payne's Gray. It's just very flat, and I think your shadows are just, and that's honestly, it's how I get that glow. Look at how beautiful that is. Just, that's gorgeous. And now what I want to do is I'm going to pick up a little bit more yellow, and I'm going to just get that a little bit more saturated in that area. What I should have done, and I didn't do, was erase that line. I should have done that. Now, if you notice, the minute I put that yellow in, it kind of pushed itself over into that blue area. And okay, just a little bit of that, more of that yellow and purple, and up into there. And see how I've created some beautiful shadows and absolutely no mud, none. They're vibrant and beautiful shadows. And I can see a little bit of blue over and red in this area. And the same thing. See, that yellow is awful bright there. So what I'm going to do is I'm pulling some of the blue and the red to tone it down a little bit. But now I'm also going to pick up some more yellow. So not only have I increased the saturation a little bit, made that color really bright, but I've also brought some of that blue and red in there to help up that shadow just a bit. Now I need to get over in there, and let's see. Okay, so running out of room on here, that's okay. So I just want to at least do this, and I want to flip it around so you can see what we're going to be working on tomorrow. Okay, so now I need a little area of burnt sienna. So I'm going to try to, oh, geez, wow, that was a lot of, okay. What was I doing? Oh, what the heck am I doing? Okay, there. Okay, that's beautiful. So here's what I'm gonna do. Making sure my brush is really clean. And right along that edge, right into that shadow. I don't have much water on there. That's really damp, so I'm keeping my brush damp to match. And you don't have to go up into that area if you don't want to. And look at that. Now I've made that little edge. Ooh, whoa. Okay, now I'm gonna come along, grabbing some of that red and kind of a blue. It's a little bit more unsaturated. I'm making it really thin. I'm gonna come right along this area. I'm gonna save that little white. Just gonna pull some color right in there. Maybe add a little bit more blue. Now, do we have to be that detailed? You can be as detailed as you want. I'm just showing you this is what I do. This is how I'm painting. This is how I'm taking these colors and using them to my advantage and creating shadows. And so now we're gonna get a really beautiful glow there. So now I'm gonna thin that little burnt sienna area I made out a little bit. Very thin. I just put some water on my brush. I'm coming up into that area. Maybe a little bit more yellow. And a little bit more. Now a little bit of the purple. And again, you don't have to do this much detail, but I want you to see the process that I go through as I'm painting. Just completely, every little step I do, so I'm not hiding anything from you. And then there's a gorgeous, beautiful, dark area right on the tip, right there. And wow, look at how that, just that little value change, look what that did. Look at how that just brought that petal alive. That is just stunning. So now I'm going to take some of that grayish color. I'm going to go right along that edge right there and just connect it a little bit. And absolutely lovely. I'm going to up the yellow a little bit right in there. with a very damp brush, I'm just adding a little bit more color in there, right in that shadow. Okay, now I'm going to quickly dry it. Now I'm going to flip it around. Let's zoom out. Let's get in a little bit closer and look at that. And that is what we're going to go around and do on all the petals. And now as that dries too, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Let's go more. And now look at how beautiful it is up against that really dark shadow right there. We have a shadow, but it's filled with life. It's got color and it's beautiful. So now imagine that everywhere. It's gonna be beautiful. I am just really, really happy with this, even though not exactly perfectly happy with my, let me tone that down. There we go. Even though I'm not completely happy with that cactus, but like I said, I'm going to go over it again, but I just wanted you to see what we're going to be doing tomorrow. So we will get all those finished tomorrow, and then we'll work on the center. And I think it's just going to be stunning. That's why I want to do it again. I think it's just going to be beautiful. So, okay, it's about 20 after 10. So does anybody have any questions so far about what I've done? I want to, don't want to just leave and cut this off. So I know that there's a little delay. So maybe while I'm waiting to see if there are any questions, I'm going to take a little yellow now while I'm waiting. And I'm trying to get my flower back in focus. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, just adding a little bit of yellow right in that area. And you can already see what's going to happen. It's just everything's going to start just really coming alive. I'm going to a really small brush. I'm picking up some of that burnt sienna that I made. That's going to be so pretty. This is good. Oh, I'm excited. And this is why I definitely am going to redo this. But that's going to be beautiful. Do one more little thing. And really, if anybody has any questions, just go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to switch back to the front. And oh, it's going to be beautiful. I'm so excited about this. Okay, so not seeing any more questions, so I'm going to switch back to my front view. Okay, all right, everybody. Thanks for being patient with me, and especially when I was doing that background. But I'm actually really excited about how this Cactus Blossom is going to look. I think it's going to be just beautiful when we really start working on those petals and getting all those beautiful dark edges on the petals, the tips, and building up those center with the stamens. And So I'm pretty excited about it. So thanks everybody for watching, and I will see you again. I will be here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and if I have to go over again, I will. I want to get this done, and I want to be able to see everything that you're painting too. So thank you everybody, and I will see you tomorrow morning.